fans, it is upon us, the 2020-21 NBA season. Spurs had their first preseason game against the Thunder. They lost 121-108. Stephen, Patty Mills had a game. Is that who you're representing under there?
Sensational FIBA Patty was definitely in the building for game one of the San Antonio preseason. But how about what a quick turnaround, Trace? I feel like we were just in the bubble talking about what is this Spurs team going to look like. And then that was like 20 minutes ago. And then now we're back and we're playing basketball again. It was kind of a really quick turnaround. But yeah, I don't know how much the 2020-2021 Spurs look like the 2020 bubble Spurs, but basketball.
It's hard to look like the team in the bubble when the two key players from the bubble are currently
not with you. That's right.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about our first impressions of the new rookies tonight, and let's start with the rookies. Why not? So two rookies played last night, Tre Jones and Devin Vassell. Stephen, my first impression of Vassell was, oh, he can shoot. That's cool. That was good to see. And, I think probably tried a little bit more on defense than most of the veterans. I don't know if this is a preseason I don't care about playing defense thing, or if this is, I'm Marcus Aldrin and I don't care about playing defense just in general. It's hard to say.
It's a general rule of thumb.
Yeah. But Stephen, let's just keep it on the rookies for a minute. But what are some things you saw from Vassell and Jones that were stuck out, good or bad to you?
I was really excited about Devin Vassell last night. I think I was a little sad. Maybe I'm going to end up owing him a real life apology if I ever get the chance to. But currently on my TV here in the other room, Denny Avedra is going bananas for Washington. I think he was 3 for 3 from his first couple shots, and he even hit a buzzer beater to end the first quarter. So that'll take me a while to get over that. But last night I watched Devin Vassell play, and boy, he was a treat. First touch that he had, Trace, he went straight to the basket and got 2 free throws. He actually went away from a screen and roll. So I was very proud and impressed with that, because that's an attacking mindset that is very unique to a rookie in San Antonio. Most rookies in San Antonio's, they go straight up I-35 and they hang out in Austin. And these two rookies this year were thrown straight into the fire in a preseason game. And first quarter minutes, I think, for Devin, or maybe it was early second. But that first touch, I was like, oh, this is nice. Then he hit a pretty contested jumper, and he had a couple other good showings. But you're right. Defensively, we're not going to refer him to previous players who were number 2. We're not going to go that route. We're not going to be dramatic about that. But he definitely can play defense. And the same is true of Tre Jones, who was, what was he, the ACC Defensive Player of the Year last year at Duke. He's got a good solid body to him. He's got some thickness to him. He's not going to get pushed around. And I was impressed with both of them, especially on the defensive end, but particularly Devin. I mean, he's got a little offensive game to him. He clearly looks like a rookie. It was clearly a preseason game, and it was clearly a preseason game against a not great team. So let's not take that and, start buying all the stock in the world in Devin. But the Spurs have also not had on a number 11th overall pick in a really long time. So I think that's to be expected of him a little bit. But it was fun to watch both of those guys, because I think previously the Spurs first round draft picks that we've had, Trace, have been in the oven cooking for a while. And it looks from the showing of things last night that they still might need some more time in the oven. Whereas the new rookies, they may be a little closer to done than some of the other guys.
They looked more ready. Luka, I don't want to be over dramatic or I don't want to be on the hating Luka bandwagon of Twitter fans, but I mean, the limited, again, it's very limited action, but man,
Mhm.
he just has not been impressive. And I don't want to say that he can't ever be good, but he's got an uphill battle.
Yeah, it was 8 minutes. It was he checked in for like the last 30 seconds of the third quarter. He started the fourth quarter, and I think it was 8 minutes and 32 seconds left before he ever touched the ball. Like touched the ball on the defensive end or the other side, and he got like one random bucket. But I'm trying hard not to be on the hate Luka train too, but it's also really easy just to jump on board that train because there's stops all along the way, and that was a little frustrating.
And I will say, I mean, like you already touched on it, but Trey Jones, the numbers, I mean, he only got 7 minutes, I think, last night. I think he got 1 point and 1 assist, 1 rebound. I think he could have had at least 2 or 3, maybe 4 more assists. He was trying to get some things started. I think probably part of the problem is the people he was trying to get the party started with were guys like Luka who they couldn't actually make the party. They bailed last second on the offensive party. But I was really impressed that there was a stretch in like, the Spurs in the third quarter, they kind of made this a contest. It actually looked like the fourth quarter was going to be.
They were down by 20 at one point. So good for them for getting back in the game.
Yeah, I think by the end of the by the start of the fourth quarter, they were only down by like 6 or something like that.
Yeah.
But and I think it was just it really was just trying for Trey. Like there were plays he was just putting his body in front of people, and I looked around the starters, so it just looked like they couldn't be bothered to put their body anywhere they needed to go.
Yeah, this was definitely a knock the rust off game, probably for most of the veterans. LaMarcus looked gassed. I mean, he looked gassed after that first rotation.
Yeah.
And DeMar looked pretty much like DeMar DeRozan.
Like DeMar.
That was neither. He was probably a little gassed as well. These guys did not have a ton of time off, so I'm sure they probably took advantage of it however they could.
Well, except LaMarcus hasn't played since the beginning of March.
He has not played for a minute. That's right.
He did have shoulder surgery, so
he looked winded. So I look to see those guys, I guess, as they kind of finish out preseason. What are we looking forward to for the rest of the preseason? Like, I'd like to see I want to put this in big quotations, the stars of the team. I would prefer that they start to get into shape, maybe dust off some rust. LaMarcus and DeMar weren't the only 2 guys that looked rusty. I thought Murray looked rusty, really rusty. Lonnie looked rusty, but I want to have a little grace for that guy because I think he had some back issues this week. Rudy Gay looked fine, I thought. He was the second leading scorer with Patty. And so that's, let's try not to read too much into the rotations of preseason, but rather how guys are looking and breathing in those first 3 preseason games.
Yeah, and I think something that we're all gonna have to like keep reminding ourselves is there's 3 preseason games. There was about 1 week of training camp, so there's no way the rotations that we saw in that game against the Thunder are in any way going to reflect what this is going to look like going forward, especially when you consider the fact that 2 of their better players were on the sidelines and will be for. I don't know if there's a timetable actually. I just know that there was some vague. They will miss the beginning of the season talk going on.
Yeah, whatever that is. Which, thank you, Greg Belichick, for always giving us definitive timelines for injured players.
Steven, I want to talk a little bit about how just a little bit more, not too much, otherwise I'll get sad, but just how poor defensively this team looked. And do you think it's my going into the season, the thing that I thought that the Spurs would be able to, or they have to improve upon if they're going to be better than, the number 11 pick in the draft next year, is defense. They were a pretty fine offensive team last year, as you might remember, but the problem is they were just consistently giving up 130 points a game or something like that. So to play a team in Oklahoma City that I didn't even recognize, I don't know who any of those people that were playing other than Gilgeous Alexander. It's the only brand name on that team at this point.
George Hill was on their team, and I was like, George Hill, all right,
George Hill, yeah,
go George.
And and you know they took the Spurs. They ran up 121 points on the Spurs. Primarily in like the second quarter, they just really blew them out. But you know, the starters they just didn't play defense. I'm expecting by the time the season starts that they actually try a little bit harder. Nice to see Jakob. I thought he actually looked pretty good offensively, which was cool. But what are you taking into stock from the defense that we saw, and like how much of it worries you and how much of it just like, we got a couple more games to shake it off?
Yeah. So I think that defensively, it's easy for you to hide maybe like one guy on a team. It's easy to hide, you know, particularly a guard on your team if you have him surrounded by some other pretty competent defenders who can hit a couple open shots. You know, not ever wanting to compare the Spurs to the Rockets, but James Harden, even in himself, had to become a decent defender in some regards, and he's pretty strong on the block. So whenever he plays, last year when they played their small ball lineup, James obviously had to guard a lot of fours, but he's stronger than you think that he is, and so he's able to do that. The problem is that the Spurs just do not have that type of setup. So their two stars, who are not only outdated offensively because they don't shoot threes, and we can talk about whether or not LaMarcus Aldridge is a 3-point shooter, which he's not. You know, we can talk about that later. DeMar is not, but they're not giving you anything on the defensive end. So that's two holes that you have to cover for. And whenever you're surrounding your other defenders, who we like to think is supposed to be Murray, or we like to think it's supposed to be Jakob, these are your two primary defenders. They're really weak on the offensive side of the ball. And that's a frustrating part. Now, I think we're going to see a little bit of growth from Jakob. I hope that's the case. He's clearly their best rim protector. But, man, when he's on the court with Aldridge, it just mucks everything up. They're slow. You now have Aldridge and DeMar that you have to compensate for. So that means Murray has to kind of cover and help out DeMar, and Jakob has to, you know, help out Aldridge. I'm starting to worry about, and we've talked about this for years, Trace, but just the roster assembly, it's a mess. You have guys that are playing with, you know, they're literally on the court with each other, and they're not complimenting each other's games. And that's really not the player's fault, man. I mean, they have strengths and they have weaknesses. It's not, you know, they're not the ones that put themselves on the team. So I still do not see how Jakob Poeltl and LaMarcus Aldridge are going to play with each other, because they're basically two skill sets in two bodies. You have one who's a primary defensive rim protector who can be used in screen and rolls with, you know, Jakob. But then you have this other guy who's a mid-range shooter that their focus is trying to extend him out to the three-point line. And I even posted it on my Twitter that there's a play where Murray got beat and Aldridge just kind of like did one of those at the guy, and the guy made a layup. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you're 6'11", like, contest the shot. It's a guard. So I'm worried about it, but I think there are bright spots to see from Vassell, and I thought Trey Jones was solid defensively. You know, Patty is another guy who he's a spark plug off the bench, and maybe we'll see FIBA Patty, but even FIBA Patty was not a defensive stopper. So there's too many guys that the Spurs have to hide defensively, but they don't have the offensive firepower to really keep up with that. So, you know, it's still roster assembly as far as I'm concerned, Trace. And, you know, I'm going to bang this drum all year long until he's actually gone. But the Spurs really got to move off Aldridge. They're never going to play this fast defensive lineup that they want, and they're not going to have the offense that they want as long as Aldridge is on the court. You could get away with hiding DeMar because he's a guard and you can cheat on that, but you can't hide both of them. And I mean, what do they do? I mean, you bench them, you have those guys on your roster, you play them. They're being paid buku dollars. So yeah, I don't know what to do.
You know, there were a few like bright spots on the defensive side. They actually did a pretty decent job of forcing turnovers. And, you know, this is, again, an Oklahoma City team that, based on name recognition alone, you might think they're prone to be turnovers. But, you know, Jakob Poeltl, 4 blocks and a steal last night. Murray had a few steals. Vassell, cool to see. He got a few of his own, a few steals himself, and a block in his first game. He was actually kind of interesting. I always try to like, whenever I look at a box score and like, I'm always really drawn to the plus minus column because like in some ways I think it's one of the most pointless stats that exist, but it's also kind of interesting to take a look at it as well. San Antonio had 2 players who played meaningful minutes finish positive, and that was Pirtle and Vassell. They're the only ones that finished in the positive.
Good.
Bates Diop +2 in his 3 minutes, but you know the other guys who actually played meaningful minutes, they're the only ones that actually had a positive plus minus at the end of the night.
That's not a good thing to go forward with. I also think too, like Drew Eubanks played 6 minutes last night. You just got a contract, and Trey Lyles played 23 minutes. I'm looking here. Lonnie Walker only played 13 against, we mentioned the back stuff. So it's like, let's not read too much into the rotations, but there were plenty of things in there that we saw that was like, okay, this team is still going to have some defensive struggles. And I don't know that that's just going to go away by getting Keldon and Derek White back.
Right.
I mean, they're real life problems that this team has, and they're gonna have to figure something out. And I think maybe like a full commitment to small ball, sans LaMarcus Aldridge is really that's what the team is really made up for. They just have these random 2 parts that don't go with the rest of the team.
Right. I feel like you've seen Mean Girls, right?
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen Mean Girls. Whenever I see Trey Lyles come in, I think of that scene where they're like, "Stop making fetch happen. It's not going to happen." That's me and Trey Lyles. Stop making Trey Lyles happen. It's not going to happen, man.
Trey Fetch Lyles is of this now. All right, nice. I'm going to start using that. Nice shot, Fetch.
Yeah, we're gonna have to create some memes for stop making Trey Lyles happen.
That's good. Hey, Trace, before we go any further, though, I think it's important for us to remember, like, our official sponsor of this Casa De Spurs podcast, but something that always helps the Spurs out, it always helps me out, and that's a good old-fashioned Whataburger. Now, I know that the last time I was driving through the southern states, I stopped at Whataburger and I had one in Phoenix, and then I also had one in South Texas, and that is the Hatch Green Chili Bacon Burger. I mean, this thing was loaded to the nines, all kinds of juicy flavors. You had the large patty, the American, and Monterey Jack cheese with green chilies. Crispy, nice. Oh, it was just, the bacon was just, it was to die for. And then, of course, it came with mayonnaise, but I like to substitute mine for, creamy pepper. I'm just saying, it's just the way I like to do things. And I also picked up some creamy pepper and brought it home. Fries and a Diet Coke, that's how I like to have mine. But hey, do it your way. You know, that's how, do it however you want to. So if you're out there, go grab a Hatch Green Chili Bacon Burger from Whataburger. So, Trace, let's go into kind of the other part here. Now, we've talked about these guys, but what does Keldon and Derek actually add to this team defensively when they return, hopefully tomorrow, but probably not, but whenever there is that they're back in this vague realm of an injury timeline? What are they going to do to this team, and how is it going to hopefully save this team defensively?
Saving this team defensively is a lot to ask.
Is that the answer?
You guys. But we can, we can make some guesses at what the lineups will be that, that will, like you mentioned, like start to maybe hide some of the defensive problems that you get. Yeah. I think, man, I feel like the starting lineup, like, you replace. Unfortunately, you can't really tell LaMarcus Aldridge he's not going to start. I think we might. I don't think we're going to see Jakob Poeltl starting. I think when Derek is back, it'll be DeRozan, White, DeJounte, Aldridge, and then I need one more.
The truth is they're probably going to start either Lyles or Rudy Gay next to those guys. But
yeah.
That's not what we want to see.
Which is something we saw a lot last season, where we thought Jakob should be the starter, and then more often than not, he was coming off, the end of the first quarter and the second quarter.
Right.
So, but I do think that, I do think a lineup like that, I'm having some trust issues with DeJounte Murray, and it's really bothering me because I want him to. I
Are we
feel
ready
like
to talk about that?
I guess, man. Is this the place? I don't know. Like, what do we? What do you like? I don't. Whenever I see him running around with the ball, I get really nervous.
Yeah.
I'm starting to get flashbacks to when Danny Green would try to like pick it up off the dribble, and the problem is like DeJounte Murray is not as good a shooter as Danny Green was when he was doing that for San Antonio. So if the whole point of having DeJounte Murray on the court is to have like a defensive-minded point guard who's going to facilitate your offense, then you need someone who's better offensive facilitator, and I think that's Derek White.
Yeah, and I feel like you feel I would 150,000 times rather Derek White control the offense than DeJounte Murray control the offense. I think we have to start asking ourselves a question. And hey, I'm the one that started this podcast off by saying we shouldn't make sweeping generalizations about the state of this roster. But I think we're going to have to start. Let's do it. Why not? Let's ask ourselves this question. Is DeJounte Murray the point guard of the future for the San Antonio Spurs? And maybe there's not an answer to that question right now. Maybe we don't get an answer to that question for the next couple of weeks. But I can tell you right now, I would think that there is a opportunity that exists in a lineup with Derek White and Lonnie Walker and Keldon Johnson and DeMar DeRozan and Jakob Poeltl that sounds and operates a lot better than if you replaced DeJounte Murray and LaMarcus Aldridge into that lineup. Yeah. So that opens up a lot of different things for your team and your spacing. The problem is DeJounte, they just gave a contract to you coming off of an ACL tear. And so you bank on that player becoming a particular type of player. Has he become the player that they've wanted? No. Okay. So he had your first year back from injury. So this is kind of the make or break year for DeJounte, right? I mean, This is where you figure it out. And I was just going to say, there's a lot of this stuff that's piling up with these players, and everybody talks about them in a rebuilding year. What are you rebuilding with? And what is your real, like, what are you going to build around? Because for a long time, we thought DeJounte Murray was the point guard we were going to build around. And now I'm like, I don't know if I feel like I like that idea.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Last night's starting lineup, but you just replaced DeJounte with Derek. How does that make you feel?
so that puts Derek, DeMar, Rudy, LaMarcus, and Jakob. I still don't like that lineup.
No.
I mean, I personally want to see DeMar DeRozan play the 4, quote unquote, although he's not going to play power forward. I want a 4-guard lineup, and he should be stocky enough where, like I said about James Harden, he needs to be stocky enough where he can play defensively against some of those bigger bodies at the 4 spot. He's not going to stop guys like Blake Griffin. I'm not expecting him to do that. But if you surround him with a little bit more shooting and Derek White, and you get guys like Keldon Johnson, Lonnie Walker next to him, okay, I think now you're able to hide him a little bit better. And Jakob Poeltl is clearly much faster and better at moving his feet than LaMarcus Aldridge is. So we see guys like Rudy Gay. I'm sorry, he's a bench player in his career. I think Carmelo Anthony has found a great role in Portland playing as a bench unit. And I think Rudy is right there in that same category. He's probably there as a strong veteran leader of this team playing with Patty Mills on the second unit. It's just the truth of the situation. And LaMarcus Aldridge is probably getting close to that window too. But good luck telling that to LaMarcus Aldridge. I don't know that he would buy it. So, I mean, let's see what they send out there. But that first starting unit in game 1 of the preseason, it did not show me that they wanted to play like the bubble Spurs.
No.
And if the only reason they didn't do that was because of Keldon and Derek, then.
Yeah. I mean, and those 5 played a lot of minutes together.
They played a lot.
I didn't see a lot of like mix up in the, it was kind of like those 5 were on and then other 5 guys were on, but like those five shared a lot of court together.
Out of the starters, Jakob Poeltl played the least.
Yes.
Jakob Poeltl played the least out of the starters. 21 minutes. Rudy Gay played 26 minutes.
Did he lead the game? Did he lead the team in minutes, Rudy Gay?
More minutes than anybody else on the team was Rudy Gay in a preseason game. Which is where you're supposed to be experimenting with these types of things.
Right.
Like, I don't know. I'm not Greg Popovich. I don't want to tell him how to do his job. But I also want to tell him how to do his job.
Let's talk about Keldon then. So in your mind, is Keldon a first team player at this point in time?
I think Keldon's a starter. I think the nature of where this team is going in the development component, and I think what Keldon has shown, again, look, Luka Samanic is not ready. Like, he's not even close to ready. And let's not dump on the guy, but this guy, like, I don't even know if Luka can get like top 12 rotational minutes. The guy might need to go back to Austin. Keldon has shown that he is borderline starter. He's a borderline starter, probably on a good team. So if the Spurs are a bad team who are literally playing for development, he needs to be a starter. You don't put a veteran over Keldon because, well, he's a veteran. No, you would do that if you were actually like a good team with veterans around you. And then you would be like, yeah, we have this guy he's our 8th guy on our roster and he's coming along and he might be good. But if you don't have any good players like that, then you start him. And I would start Keldon at the 3. I'd probably start him next to Derek White and Lonnie Walker. And then again, I would put DeMar at the 4. And then I'm playing Jakob at the 5. But again, that leaves out Aldridge and Murray. What about you? Where is Keldon in your world of playing time?
I think him and DeJounte, I mean, in my world, I guess him and DeJounte are like anchoring the second unit.
Yeah.
So
you want to play
maybe this is my dream.
Patty with DeJounte.
This isn't my dream, but this is kind of like with what I'm working with is what I think is like the best case scenario is that we have the start. My guess is that the starters would be White, Pirtle, DeRozan, Aldridge, and Gay or Lyles. And what I think, and then based on that, I think the bench unit would be, you got DeJounte, you got Lonnie, you've got Keldon coming in, and then,
Mills.
Mills.
So you like to front load your big men into the starting lineup. And play that small ball touch.
This isn't what I think. I don't know if this is good. This is what I think is going to happen, maybe, or I don't know. It's what I could easily see happening based on kind of what we saw last year.
I think it's important for us to both remember too, like in basketball substitutions, like they're not like hockey line changes. It's like you do get overlap in minutes. So like your first rotation, like first guy off the bench last night was Trey Lyles. Like Trey Lyles came in and then he stayed out there and played with LaMarcus Aldridge and DeMar DeRozan for like the last 4 minutes of the first quarter. So it's not like it's just a 1-for-1, 5-for-5 swap. First unit you're out, second unit you're in. There is overlap that goes with that. But eventually you get that start of the second quarter, end of the third quarter lineups that are your bench units. Those are your bench guys. And I would prefer that the Spurs not only bring along the youth movement, but they also bring along the bubble Spurs, which was a small ball lineup. And I would prefer that they lead with that and play your 2 big men, LaMarcus and Jakob, on a matchup dependent basis.
Yeah.
Rather than leading with that lineup and your bench unit is your small ball, your bubble Spurs lineup. I think there's a lot for them to work out. I got to figure out.
And please, like, I just want to make it like abundantly clear that whatever I just said is like, I don't think that's awesome. And like, I don't want anyone to accidentally think that I think that is what the Spurs should be doing.
Yeah.
It's just like, I hope I'm dead wrong. But it's something that I could see. I don't know that it's bad to have Keldon coming off the bench. I mean, if Keldon was the next Manu Ginobili, like there would be no feelings of ill will from anyone in the fan base. But the thing about what made Manu so great coming as a second unit was like they already had like an all world first unit. We didn't like the fact that you have the luxury of bringing Manu on as a sixth man says everything about the way that the team was built then compared to how the team is built now. It's like, no, just get these guys some minutes, man. Just
right.
Get them.
It helps whenever you have 2 Hall of Fame players in your starting lineup already.
Yes.
That's a nice commodity to have, as opposed to having 2 former All-Stars who really don't know where they're going to go in their latter part of their careers. Yeah. So
I think there's room for DeMar DeRozan on this team. I don't find that there's as much room for LaMarcus Aldridge on this team, but I think DeMar DeRozan has a home.
I would agree with that. And I also think too, if you're going to have one guy that you go, hey, look, you're going to stick around to close games for us. That's really your job. The fourth quarter is yours.
Yeah.
Everything else, and that's in competitive games, but the fourth quarter is yours. So float around, get guys involved and facilitate. And then we're going to go to you in a close game or in crunch time. DeMar DeRozan's not a bad guy to have on your team, but when you're expecting him to take 20 shots and play 30 plus minutes and be on both sides of the ball, that's not what you're going to get out of DeMar. So there's a role for DeMar on this team, but it's probably not what most people have expected DeMar to be. And I'm just not so sure that role exists for LaMarcus. LaMarcus would actually probably be pretty good with a second unit where he could not bang on, an opposing team starting center, and then he could space out and stretch a little bit more. But
and the problem is we're paying both those guys $27 million.
Yeah, what do they take? So. they take almost a third, more than a third of your cap, almost half of it. So as long as those guys are on your team, you play them.
Yeah,
that's why they shouldn't be on the team.
Steven, we're just about running out of time. 2 preseason games remain against the Rockets. Prediction?
I think they'll take L's in both of them. But then again, I'm being negative Nancy because the Rockets are just as much shamble now as they've ever been, and I'm enjoying that. But
will Harden be there? Will Harden play?
I don't think so.
No,
I doubt it. I don't know that Harden will ever play again for the Rockets. I just want to see. I want to see them work out these kinks straight because we have meaningful basketball in a week. Meaningful basketball. So there's not a lot of time. So I really hope that we don't see Murray, DeRozan, Gay, Jakob, and Aldridge start in games 2 and 3 because that would be concerning going into the season.
Yeah. Well, fingers crossed. Steven, awesome to be chatting Spurs basketball with you again.
As always.
Looking forward to the real kickoff of the season. In the meantime, we'll have to satiate ourselves with some Houston Rockets versus San Antonio Spurs basketball. But for everyone listening, thank you for joining in. As usual, you can find the show on Stitcher, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts. We putting this up on YouTube now. Are we streaming on Twitch? I don't know, man. We're getting it all over the place. But thank you so much for listening. Happy to be in a new Spurs season with you. And if you hit us up on Twitter if you got anything you want to hear on the show, we'll consider bringing it up. And go Spurs, go!
Go Spurs, go!